All right, it is time for Money Power Politics. Today, investors shrugged off news that the U.S. has lost its AAA credit rating, with the S&P 500 squeezing out its sixth day of gains, but consumers may not be so lucky. Mortgage rates crossed back over 7% after Moody's credit downgrade, their highest level since April, while business titans Ray Dalio and Jamie Dimon warned that investors are underestimating the economic risks of the downgrade. With me now to discuss this, Natasha Sarin, former Treasury official and Yale law professor, and David Gura, correspondent for Bloomberg and host of the Big Take podcast. Great to have both of you with us. Most people may not know what it means when you get a credit downgrade. They may know it in their personal lives, but what does it actually mean for consumers when a country like the United States gets downgraded?
So this is confirming what I think a lot of people have felt or thought about the U.S. economy for a long time. So there's three major credit rating agencies. This is the third one to downgrade the United States. So we've seen it happen before. There was kind of more dislocation the first time that it happened. But it's this recognition of the fact that the fiscal stability of this country isn't as safe as it once was. So to your question about what it means for regular folks, it's part of this broader trend of, I think, people questioning what had been taken for granted in this country for a long time, that this was the safest place to put your money, that U.S. debt was the safest investment in the world. Now there are signs, at least recognized by these agencies, that that might not be as safe as it has been.
And ultimately, you would expect American officials to come out and either defend what they're doing or to address the concerns that these agencies have. Instead, we heard Scott Bessent do something a little bit different. Watch this.
I think that Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. If we go back to your initial question on the Moody's downgrades, who cares? Qatar doesn't, Saudi doesn't, UAE doesn't. They're all pushing money in.
So in this case, he's just saying he doesn't care about the credit agency. What do you make of that approach?
So I think it is misguided. But I will say Secretary Bessent said in that thing Moody's is a lagging indicator. And this goes a bit to what David's been saying. They are the last of the three credit rating agencies to fall. And the reason why they're falling is because they're identifying something that isn't just true about this 100 days plus of the Trump administration, which is our fiscal situation is fundamentally untenable. We have debt to GDP ratios that are expected to rise to something like 130% over the course of the next decade. And that's a result of the choices that we're making from a policy perspective. I will say, I don't think Moody's did this on accident on Friday. And that goes a little bit to what the secretary is suggesting. Like, they are watching the world of this reconciliation bill be debated. And as a result of the proposed policies in this legislation, you're going to see deficit finance tax cuts on the order of something like $3 trillion as if the temporary stuff goes away. It's actually more like $5 trillion over the course of this next decade. So we are making this problem worse, not better. And I think that is something that investors care about. And frankly, that's something that our international counterparts care about, as they should, because it makes our fiscal situation fundamentally more unstable.
I'm glad you brought up the issue of the deficit in this big, beautiful bill that Trump has been talking about, because it is something that Moody's pointed to. But let me play for you what the White House press secretary said about that, and I'll get your thoughts to it.
Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion.
So on its face, that's just a straight up lie. That is not correct, right? The Council of Economic Advisors also is part of the White House. So it's basically the White House pointing to the White House team saying the White House team is telling us that it's going to add to the thing. That's not an independent body outside of the White House, right?
So, and no, it is not.
Yeah.
And additionally, we're in a situation where we actually have outside groups and experts who have taken a look at this package and have...
Part of one.
I'm part of one. I run one at Yale.
That's what I meant. Like, that's what I was getting to, yeah.
The Yale Budget Lab, we estimate that the likely impact from a fiscal perspective is at least $3.8 trillion over the decade. And again, if everything ends up being permanent, it's more like 5. And by the way, that 5 becomes larger over time because interest rates are high. And so you're in a situation where the cost of servicing that debt in the future is really, really significant. And that's not just what we think at the Yale Budget Lab. That's what the Penn Wharton budget model thinks. That's what the Joint Committee on Taxation thinks. And that's when CBO ultimately comes out and scores this package. That's what they're going to say as well.
The sentiment, though, on Wall Street may be a little bit different. I mean, the stock market, as we mentioned, 6th day of gains. Jamie Dimon is saying that. I think the exact quote is he's saying an extraordinary amount of complacency is how he's describing the way the market has been rebounding. But I'm curious to get your thoughts. I mean, are stocks assessing the dangers that lie ahead accurately, or how do you explain this brief run?
I think that the market is trying to grab onto any indication that things are going better than they had been going. Right. So when Jamie Dimon speaks, everybody listens because he runs the biggest bank in the country. But what he's saying is we're underestimating the effect of these tariffs, and that's in part because we just haven't seen those effects yet. And so we've heard from a lot of big investors, from a lot of retailers, that this is going to be bad and we're going to see those effects very soon. He thinks that the market is underestimating that. But if you look at this kind of broad story about the tariffs, look, the market has gone up by a huge amount of percent down. That's not a way the healthy market operates. Right. I think he's picking up on that, like, yes, you can have days of gains, but what's like overarching here is the level of uncertainty. And that's what makes him, I think, concerned. He's concerned about credit. And I think that he has always been somebody who's sounded the alarm about geopolitical risk. He did that again today in his comments to Investor Day as well.